Good evening, and welcome to the Unvarnished Truth, the show that prohibits partisanship, bans BS, and assaults you mercilessly with the unvarnished truth of life. Tonight we have a show that's going to be quite interesting. We're going to talk about the politics of race. We're also going to discuss just a few of the things that that kind of tick me off. That's going to be just a personal segment here. We're also going to talk about health care, not so much a focus on Obamacare, but health care in general. We're also going to discuss aliens, Bigfoot, and the supernatural. And then we're going to talk about abortion as well. So we've got some controversial topics. We've also got some interesting and fun topics and in store for us tonight, and some pretty good music, a little variety of music here that we'll be listening to during the breaks. So why don't we just go ahead and get started. I'm Swan Dog, also known as David Paul Brennan, and I'm your host. The Unvarnished Truth comes to you from the Fishbowl Radio Network studio in Searcy, Arkansas, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 5 p.m. Central. If you would like to interact with me, you can do that by Facebook. I'm on Facebook at facebook.com/David Paul Brennan. So if you'd like to make a comment about anything that is said on the show, feel free to make a comment. The best ones will get my attention and possibly make it on the air. Now, you can also send me comments via Twitter. It's at codename SwanDog on Twitter. So let's get into our discussion about the politics of race. And this is a really touchy subject. And being a Caucasian, I know I'm running a risk here of actually just offending a lot of people because of some of the things that I'm going to say, because a white person is really not supposed to say these things. It's not politically correct. But I'm going to say them anyway, because although they may not be politically correct and they may not be pretty, they're the truth. And that's what this show is about. The show is about the unvarnished truth. The truth is not always pretty, but it is always true. So let's talk about the politics of race a little bit, and let's start off. And I just want to acknowledge here that I know that racism is not dead in America. There is very much an element of racism in America, and we always will have racism. The racism that we have, though, is it's trending from the traditional racism of white against black racism, and now we have reverse racism that's on the march. White on black racism is on the retreat. We're becoming more and more reconciled, at least in the white community, with the black community and with black people. However, we're seeing what I believe is on the march, a reverse racism. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how we know that race is a huge factor in all of our lives, but most importantly, race plays a huge factor in voting. Now, here's something I'm going to kind of throw out here and see if anybody can answer this question for me. Does anybody know why that Barack Obama he earned 95 to 98% of the black vote, depending on which figures that you look at? Barack Obama earned 95 to 98% of the black vote. Now, was there any white candidate in history that earned 95 to 98% of the black vote? Well, I don't think so. So we hear a lot of people say it was about ideology. Well, if it was about ideology, then people like Jimmy Carter and Walter Mondale would have received 95 to 98% of the black vote, and we know that they did not receive that much of the vote. So, there's a question for you. Why is it? What was it about Barack Obama that garnered him 95 to 98% of the black vote? And also, I have another question for you. if it's whites that are more racist than blacks, and whites that are more motivated by race than blacks are, then why is it that Barack Obama got 95 to 98% of the black vote, yet John McCain did not get 95 to 98% of the white vote? If racism and racial motivation were equal, and white people voted just on race, as we are often accused of, then John McCain would have won the election handily with 95 to 98% of the white vote. It didn't really work that way. So just kind of, I want people to think about this. I want you to know I'm not approaching this from a racial point of view myself. I am not racist. I do not believe myself to be better than anybody else because of my race. I do not believe anybody else to be less than me because of their race. To me, race doesn't even enter into it. It's about character and the quality of person that you are. So let's think a little bit about how, this is just one example. The voting patterns is one example of how race enters into politics, and that is just because a black man can run for president and secure 95 to 98% of the black vote. So I'm just going to put it out there, as ugly as it is, that the black community voted in large numbers en masse for Barack Obama because of racial identification. Now, racial identification is another issue that I want to touch on. And I was having a discussion earlier today with my aunt, and she hit on a point that really is something that we need to think about here. And that is why, if somebody is half black, if they've got one black parent and one white parent, such as Barack Obama, why is it that they must self-identify as black? And why is it that culture identifies them as black instead of white? What would be wrong with Barack Obama identifying himself as a white man? I really don't see what would be wrong with that, because he's half white and he's half black. So it makes as much sense to self-identify and for culture to identify that person as white rather than black. But, this is not just a black and white thing. This is, it's also with anything. If you're half Mexican, if you're half Chinese, you self-identify, and culture identifies you as the minority rather than the majority. And that's something I would like my listeners to start to think about. And we're going to revisit this topic time and time and time again on the Unvarnished Truth. It's not just a one shot. So, kind of be thinking about it, and we're going to hit it several times this year, I'm absolutely sure. So, what I want to say is race plays a huge factor in politics. Now, there is another way in which race plays a major factor in politics, and that is once you have a president that's a minority, if you are in the majority and you challenge that person's ideology, you challenge that person's policies, it's viewed by members of that president's minority as being an attack based on race. Nobody gives any credibility to the idea that you are actually attacking the policies, actually attacking the ideology. They make it into a personal attack, actually motivated by race, which it's not. In some cases, I think it may be, and I'm going to admit, like I just said a while ago, there is still an amount of this traditional racism, especially in rural areas in the South. There is this, but you won't find very many people that are sophisticated enough to run for office and attain office that are going to be motivated by race. They're going to be looking at the policies about the ideology, and they're going to make their decisions based upon that. Now, there's also another factor in the politics of race, and that is people are afraid to challenge because of that. They're afraid to challenge because of the way that they're going to be portrayed, the way that they're going to be seen and represented as attacking somebody personally based on race. And that's not something, it's not proper, but it happens. And I think we've seen this time and time again with Barack Obama, our first black president. Even though, like I've said, he's half black, he is our first black president. Now, nobody wants to challenge vigorously his policies, or as vigorously as they should. Nobody wants to do that, because if they attacked his policies as vigorously as they had attacked Bill Clinton's policies, then it wouldn't be just a vast right-wing conspiracy. It would be a vast white right-wing conspiracy. And the white part would take over, and that's what would be the most important. Now, having established that race clearly plays a role in politics, and you can't deny it, it clearly does. What we need to do is we need to look at race as just a concept. What is race? Now, Marvin Harris, the great anthropologist, wrote a book entitled "Our Kind," and I think you should look this up on Amazon and get a copy of it, because it really, if you read it, you're going to understand that race is a false social construct. There really, this day and age, is truly no such thing as race. Even though we use it as a social construct, there's no real race. I guarantee you that as white as I am, I have black people in my ancestry, and even as dark as, say, someone like Dennis Rodman is, I can just about guarantee you that he has somebody who is white in his ancestry. And if you look at black people in America, and I know we're not supposed to say black, that's another thing, it's supposed to be African American, I get it, but I'm not one to be politically correct for the sake of being politically correct. So you've got this situation where you've got a false social construct that everybody buys into. And what I would like to do is for everybody to stop thinking about themselves as a white American or a black American. And this is especially going to be hard for the black community, because they have established this black community identity. And I think if any group, whether it's a black group or Chinese or Mexican or gays, it doesn't matter. If they want to be considered as the same, as equal, then they need to stop doing these things to set themselves apart. It doesn't make sense. So when you establish a very firm identity as a black American, when you establish as a culture, as a community, this identity as a black culture, a black community, then what you're doing is you're setting yourselves apart from the rest of society, the rest of the United States. And it doesn't do you any good. It only puts you at a disadvantage, because you're highlighting your minority status. You're highlighting your supposed victim status, even though we really don't have that much of the classic racism. We'll admit we have some, but we don't have all of that we had back in the 50s and 60s especially. You don't see that. We don't have segregation. We don't have those things. So we have improved a lot, but it's very rare that someone is, that a black person is a victim of white-on-black racism comparatively to how often it was back in the 50s and 60s and prior to that. And we've got this situation where we use slavery and we use segregation and discrimination as an excuse to still set whites and blacks apart from each other. And that's not a good idea. And what that really does, and Arthur Schlesinger hit on this in his book, The Disuniting of America. This is another book I would love for you to go on to Amazon.com and check out. He hit on this idea of all of these cultural identities that militate really against each other, and they prevent harmonious living. They set up conflict, and he kind of talks about, the idea that I get is that the picture of, rather than a melting pot, we're no longer a melting pot, we're a stew, and we have these different cultural identities, and they are at conflict with each other. And we're never going to really solve the race issue until we solve the issue of cultural identities based on race or any other factor that sets you apart from other people, when it really shouldn't even be a factor. What should be a factor is you're a human being, you're an American. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to encourage everybody to kind of start thinking about themselves as Americans rather than as a white American or a black American or an African American. And just one last note here on this subject about political correctness. I watched all the coverage when Nelson Mandela died. I watched on all three, cable news outlets, MSNBC, CNN, Headline News, as well as Fox News. And on all three of them, there were some people that caught themselves, but on all three of them, people were catching themselves referring to Nelson Mandela as an African American. Well, he's African, but I'm pretty sure he's not American. But it's just this is ingrained in us, this political correctness. We don't call people black, we call them African American. I'm really not for political correctness. What would I want to be called? A Lithuanian American? No, I'm perfectly fine with being called a white person. But I would rather just be thought of as an American, and I would rather think of everybody else as Americans, regardless of race. So there we have that. That's been our discussion of race and the politics of race. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take a little break. I'm going to play some Stone Temple Pilots, and we're going to come back, and we're just going to talk about some odds and ends, just some things that kind of irritate me, that tend to take me off a little bit, and hopefully get some comments from some listeners on some things that really rub them the wrong way. So let's take a few minutes to take a break, and we will be back. All right, we're back after Stone Temple Pilots and a little oldie but goodie from Gary Allan, mixing things up with a little country music there. All right, now this is where I get to just kind of go on a rant about the kinds of things that really rub me the wrong way. I'm going to start with, I'm talking young people especially, but really anybody. But really it's inappropriate when very young, especially girls, I don't see guys doing this, but young girls, I'm talking 12, 14 years old in that age range. And what I'm talking about that's inappropriate is they wear these little short shorts or these little tight tops. And that's not my beef really right now. My beef is that, it's inappropriate for, say, a guy my age to be looking at a 12 or 14-year-old girl's butt or her boobs, okay? But they wear these things that have something written right across it. I mean, right on the butt, right across the boobs, and it's usually small print or it's some sort of script that's hard to read. Well, I'm going to tell you something. If I see something that's written like that, I want to read it. I want to find out what it says. So I was in Walmart one time, and there was a girl about maybe 12, 14 years old, had the little pink short shorts on, and I still don't know what was written across the butt, but I was simply trying to read what was written on her shorts. I'm not a pedophile. I was just wanting to read what was on the shorts. And the girl's mother saw me looking, and she assaulted me like you wouldn't believe. And I was just trying to explain to her that, hey, I was just trying to read this. And if you don't want people looking at your daughter's butt, do not let her go out in public wearing some tiny little shorts with something written on the butt. If you don't want somebody looking, don't draw their attention to it. And it's the same with adults. I've seen women that have given me really strange looks and really disapproving looks when they've been wearing the tight little tank tops with something written right across the boobs. And I'm always really, I don't stare. I try not to stare at all, but, I want to read it. I want to know what it says. And yet, you're not supposed to do that. That's very inappropriate, and it's sexist and misogynistic, and you're a perv for even looking that direction. But they're the ones who wear something with it written right across there. Also, another experience that I've had. This was, I believe, it was at McCain Mall in North Little Rock, Arkansas, and it was pretty close to the Hot Topic store. And there's a person, I'm not sure if this was a male or female, but there was a person there in like all black clothing with studs and stuff on it, and about 75,000 facial piercings in weird places. And the person is just kind of standing there, and I'm walking around the mall, minding my own business, doing some shopping, and I just kind of started to stare. I couldn't help it. This person was so different. They were so unique. Everything about this person screamed, I want your attention. I'm setting myself up as different so you'll look at me. So I was looking at this person, and he or she, I still don't know for sure, asked me, well, what are you looking at? And I said, I'm looking at someone who is screaming to be looked at. And they said, well, why do you think I want your attention? I'm just the same as anybody else. Well, no, you're not. You have set yourself up as different. You have set yourself up to being looked at. So why do you get offended when you are looked at that way? That's something that really, really gets me. Something else is, totally different. We're going to talk about driving etiquette and traffic. Now, how many of you out there have been driving down a 2-lane highway, minding your own business? There's a road that tees into the 2-lane highway about a mile ahead, and you can see it. And there's a car that comes up to the stop sign on that road that tees into the highway, and it just sits there. They can see you coming a mile away, and they sit there, and they sit there, and they sit there. And just when it's too late to pull out, they pull right out in front of you. You've got to slam on your brakes, and then what do? They drive 15 miles an hour, maybe 20 if you're lucky. And the highway at that point, it's never straight and empty. From then on, the highway's got curve after curve, and in the straight spots, it's loaded with traffic, so you can't pass. So you're stuck behind this person that drives 15, 20 miles an hour in a 55 that saw you coming a mile away and decided to pull out in front of you. Now, isn't that just wonderful? That happens to me way too much, and it's happened in Arkansas, but I've been other places where it's happened to me. I've lived in Vermont, and it's happened to me in Vermont as well as Arkansas. So it's happened in a red state as well as a blue state, a conservative state as well as a liberal state. Maybe it has to do with it's rural. I don't know. I don't think I've had it happen quite as bad in more urban areas. But that's something that really gets my goat is, people just doing whatever they want that inconveniences you. They don't care. They're just going to do what they want anyway. And it happens a lot in traffic. Here, when we're talking about traffic, I want to remind people, a solid white line is a line you're not supposed to cross. A solid white line says do not cross. Now, we have several places here in my town, Searcy, Arkansas, where you've got 2 lanes that are going to narrow down to 1 lane. And the 1 lane turns off to the right, and the left lane goes straight ahead. There's a solid white line between the lanes. But what you have is people that will drive as fast as they can in that right lane and then not even signal and pull right over to the left in front of you at the very last second. And there's like 1.5 inches between your bumper and theirs, but they don't care. That grates on me. That really rubs me the wrong way. We can't talk all night about the things that rub me the wrong way. I would like to, believe me, and I really could. But we're going to talk about something else that rubs me the wrong way. Back in 2010, I was taking some classes at a university that is quite a prestigious university in Arkansas, which has a great reputation for the level of education that you get there. And people were not, I don't think that they have retained their education. Now, I was taking a senior level political science class, which is a class that only political science majors take. This is something only political science majors take, and these are seniors that are taking this class. You would think that seniors who are political science majors would know how to spell and pronounce basic words that are part of the vocabulary of their chosen area of study. An example, hegemony, Hegemony. Hegemony. Hey, I could win a spelling bee with that. No, the thing is, I was in this class, and so many people, when they would get up to do presentations or they would talk in class, they would pronounce it hegemony. Think about that, hegemony. Now, something that's obviously pronounced hegemony, and they pronounce it hegemony, they don't even know how to pronounce basic words that are part of the vocabulary of their chosen area of study. And pronouncing words brings me to something else. And this is something that a former president of ours was guilty of, and I see a lot of people doing. There is a word that is spelled Nuclear. Nuclear. It is not, I repeat, not nuclear. It is not nuclear. I can't stand it when people who are supposedly educated people who know how to read pronounce this word nuclear. Where is the U after the C? It comes before the C. It's nuclear. It's very easy to look at and know how to pronounce, yet millions of people pronounce it nuclear. And I just want to slap the crap out of those people. Now, while we're talking about just, kind of educational type of things that really rub me the wrong way, I'm going to go back to 2010 again when I was taking it was another class that I was taking at this university that was a creative writing class. Now, supposedly, to even get into this class, you had to have an A or a B in Comp 1 and 2. Well, I don't think that if these people actually got the A or the B, that they earned it, or that if they earned it, they still didn't retain that education, that knowledge. Because we get into this creative writing class, and the way the professor has the class set up is that everybody has to write something every once in a while, and then the rest of the class gets to critique whatever they've written. Well, that's just I'm going to tell you right there, that's a recipe for disaster when I'm in the class, because when I'm critiquing, I know the professor wanted me to critique their skills at creative writing, but what I just couldn't overlook was, comma splices, run-on sentences, grammatical errors everywhere, spelling errors everywhere. And I kind of became known as the grammar sheriff in that class. And that's because I would have the gall to point out where these people who were supposed to have gotten an A or a B in Comp 1 and 2 couldn't even compose a sentence without a grammatical error. And it grates on me. I just don't understand how people cannot retain at least a 5th grade educational level. And that's really all I am expecting. I'm not expecting everybody to be a college English major, okay? I'm expecting people to retain a 5th grade education. And when they don't, it rubs me the wrong way. and it's something that I tend to I let it wear on me when I shouldn't. But I would like to have a more competent society. I would like to have a more capable society, a more educated society. And for some reason, we're not retaining our education. And this is going to be a topic for some shows later on down the road. But this is just one of my little pet peeves about retaining that education and getting it right, and actually caring that you get something right. And when you've made an A or a B in Comp 1 and 2, and then you don't care in your creative writing class to use proper punctuation and proper grammar, and you don't know how to spell words over 4 letters long, then that really gets on my nerves. So that's something that it shouldn't be, but it is, and I know I shouldn't be as susceptible to it. I'm getting counseling for it, so we'll see where that goes. All right, something else on this education level that I've seen a lot of, and I'll tell you right now, I do the internet dating thing. I've done the internet dating thing ever since Al Gore invented the internet, so I'm quite used to it, and I come across women who have profiles. There was one in particular that I remember, and I actually put a link to this on my Facebook, and it says, her profile, she says, I am in collage. She means she's in college, but she is in COLLAGE. Well, I would hope that things are not so bad this day and age that you don't have to at least know how to spell college to get into college. And that just grates on me. And then I see these profiles where women say they love to do things like riding motorcycles or dancing, and they forget to drop the E. So it's RIDEING or DANCEING. Come on, people, we can do better than this. This is not the society that got to the moon by forgetting to drop the E before you add ING. It's just not. So, I can't believe that, we have this kind of thing going on where people just do not retain any significant level of education whatsoever. That really just kind of ticks me off. And I'm going to hit one other thing, and this is a topic from Monday Night Show, and that is this sense of entitlement. And that really, that's something when somebody feels like that they're entitled to special treatment for whatever reason. Yeah, that's another thing that really just gets on my nerves and really ticks me off. So, but enough about that. We're having fun just talking about the things that tick us off, and I'm getting some messages here. And if you want to talk to me via Facebook, it's perfectly fine to just to send me a private message, and you don't have to make a public comment on my Facebook. You can just send me a private message. I've gotten a few of those, and I'm looking at a few of them now. Most of them are not they're not things that I can repeat on the air as far as things that tick you off. But at least I'm getting some comments, and it seems to be I'm getting quite a few more on the little things that rub you the wrong way than I even got on the segment about the politics of race. So that's kind of interesting there. But I'm going to take a little break here. We're going to play some Winger for you, and when we come back, we're going to talk about health care. So let's just enjoy some music for a few minutes. All right, that was a little-known group from the 90s, I guess the late 80s, early 90s, called Taikedo, and the song was Standing Alone. It's one of their better songs, although Taikedo does have quite a few good songs. So we're back, and we're going to talk about health care, and really we're not going to talk that much about Obamacare because we have the Obamacare channel, otherwise known as the Fox News channel, that does a pretty good job of talking about Obamacare. What I'm going to talk about when we talk about healthcare is some of the things that people maybe occasionally hit on, but they don't really hit on like they should, in my opinion. One of the things is we hear a lot of these doctors saying, I'm going to have to go out of business because I can't afford this and I can't afford that and I can't do this because it's going to just run me in the ground. I'm going to tell you something. The doctors that I know where I live, they all live in big fancy houses out in country club or like neighborhoods, okay? They're not hurting. These doctors are making money hand over fist. I don't care if they're taking Medicaid and Medicare and insurance and private pay and what the ratios are. They are making money hand over fist, and they have an excellent, I mean excellent standard of living. So I don't know where this is coming from about I can't afford to do this or that as a doctor, and Obamacare is going to run my business as a doctor into the ground. Where does that come from? Is it just that they have this standard of living that they've been accustomed to, and they're not able to maintain that standard of living quite as well as they could otherwise? I don't really get it. They're making good money. I don't know of a doctor that's driving around in a 73 Gremlin. I just don't see it. They're driving Mercedes, and they're driving Jaguars, and they're driving Cadillac Escalades, and they live in $500,000, $600,000 houses, and they've got ATVs and boats and golf club memberships, and they live the good life. I don't know any poor doctors. Now, maybe somebody can enlighten me if there are poor doctors out there. But I'm going to tell you something. Doctoring, the profession of being a physician, is much more lucrative than it has been traditionally in the United States, back when doctors performed house calls and such. I think this is what draws people to the business, is the money. It's not that they really want to help people. Now, there are a good number of doctors who are drawn to the business because they want to help people, but I'm thinking it's the minority. I'm thinking the majority are really drawn because they are going to get paid and get paid well. So, and I'm not begrudging doctors for the money that they make. I'm not. I mean, they have huge student loan bills to pay off and all that. I understand that. I'm not begrudging them that. But when you are living this kind of lifestyle, don't say that you're poor. Don't say that you cannot afford to do X, Y, or Z that Obamacare requires. I'm just not buying it because I know too many doctors, and I see where they live, and I see what they drive, and I see the clothes they wear. I'm not buying this poor, pitiful me from the doctors. Now, I did mention a little bit how I think that it is the money that motivates people to get into healthcare, and I think I have a pretty good example of that. I have something going on in my family right now, where we have. It's actually my grandmother that's in need of some care as far as being an inpatient, and we've had her at a couple of places, and nobody was interested in diagnosing what's wrong with her and trying to treat it. All they were trying to do was I think let's get her where we can get her out of here. And one facility in particular that we had her in, because we actually cared about her and we actually would go by to see her quite often, we weren't really liked that well because we were a bother. Most people that take their grandparents, aunts and uncles, parents, etc. to these facilities, they just drop them off and don't give a second thought. And that's really sad. But these places, the people are motivated by just picking up a paycheck, so they don't really treat the people well, and they will lie to the families over and over again, even tell obvious lies, just to make you think possibly that your relative is doing better, so they can justify releasing that relative and not having them in their care. So I think if more people were motivated by a really true desire to help others and to care for others, we could really increase the quality of health care that we have out there. It's just not happening right now the way I see it. I've had too much personal experience in my family with the healthcare system to think that that these people are really truly competent people that are motivated by true concern for others and a true desire to help others. Some are, but I think the vast majority are not. So we're going to talk a little bit about an alternative to Obamacare. And this is something that I suggested back in late 2008. And here's something, it's a radical approach. And a lot of people think that this is more socialistic than Obamacare, but I see it as less socialistic. Now, what I'm talking about is providing health care for those who have no insurance or are underinsured and cannot afford to pay through a network of free hospitals. And of course, we would have free nursing homes as well. But primarily, you would get your care through a network of free hospitals in, say, the 300 largest cities in America. And these would be world-class hospitals where we would hire doctors on good salaries so they could live a nice lifestyle, even if they're motivated by money. But what this is going to do is this is going to eliminate a lot of this fraud that is in Medicare and Medicaid as far as the billing goes. There will be no billing because these are things, the services, the tests, everything is done through this free hospital, and there is no billing, so there can be no fraud. Do you see what I'm talking about? So you're going to eliminate billions of dollars in fraud, and that's going to help to pay for the program. But the program would create a lot of jobs. We would have a lot of new doctors, and that would stimulate the economy, and it would generate tax revenue, and really this program could pay for itself. And that's what I really want to get people thinking about is why can't we just have something along the lines of free hospitals rather than to go through this extremely complicated system that we have with this Obamacare. Just do away with that. Leave the insurance industry and the healthcare industry as it is intact, but add to it the free hospitals and the free nursing homes. And I think you would see that these are programs that would not only pay for themselves through economic activity and through the elimination of fraud through billing. You would just see that it would be easily paid for, and the quality of health care would be much more than you're going to get from doctors now who are seeing you under Medicaid or Medicare or some insurance policy that doesn't pay near what they're wanting to get for their services. So, I think we could really stand to consider this possibility as an alternative to Obamacare and as a way to increase not only access to health care, but the quality of health care for those who are less fortunate. We're going to take a little break. I'm going to play some Steppenwolf, a little blast from the past for you. And then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about aliens, Bigfoot, and the supernatural. So let's just listen to a little music for a few minutes. All right, that was Johnny Cash, and that was actually, that's one of his later songs that he did later in life. That was actually a cover of a Nine Inch Nails song, and I just think that Johnny Cash did it so much better, and it's such a powerful, emotional song. And if you can watch the video on YouTube, go to YouTube and look up the video for Johnny Cash. The song is Hurt, and it's one of the few videos out there that I can think of that actually that just makes me want to tear up. And there's two music videos that I can think of right off the top of my head that give me that feeling. And one is Garth Brooks' The Dance, and then the second one is this Johnny Cash Hurt. And it's just a tremendous song, and I just love it, and I think he does a great job with it. So, we've had some good music, and now we're going to be talking about something a little bit more kind of frivolous here, and that is aliens, Bigfoot, and the supernatural. And I'm going to tell you that we have for a Christian society, for a Christian country, we have a lot of people that believe in ghosts. And I'm not sure how consistent the belief in human spirits hanging around the planet, haunting people or haunting places, I'm not really sure how consistent that is with Christianity. However, people who identify as Christian, a lot of those actually believe in ghosts. And I think a lot of that maybe comes from, say, um, a lot of watching entertainment type shows that deal with ghosts, whether it's the paranormal activity movies or it's something on the Discovery Channel or something along those lines that deals with ghosts. And people see these things and it influences their belief structure. And that they watch, and this is something else. People who watch these things tend to watch everything they can get that deals with ghosts or supernatural. And so all they're doing is they're just taking in more and more media that supports their belief in human spirits that are wreaking havoc on people's lives here in this world. And that it's kind of strange for Christians who gosh, but by their theology, they're aren't they supposed to believe that their soul goes somewhere else upon death, and it doesn't hang around here just playing tricks on people and really just causing people serious problems. So as far as ghosts, this part of the supernatural, um, I'm not really sure how consistent it is with Christian beliefs, but Christians often do believe in ghosts. So there you have that. Now, other supernatural things, we do know from the Bible that there are demons, and I'm not sure that ever has changed, and I believe that we can still be affected by demons. Now, am I somebody that believes in exorcisms, such as the Catholics do, and even some Protestant churches? I think there are some Episcopal churches and such that also do, and even some Baptist churches they do these exorcisms, and I don't see them being real. That's just my opinion. I don't see them being real. You're welcome to comment, and you're welcome to get your word in there and tell me what you think about it. But I think that these are rituals that really don't have any New Testament scriptural basis. That these ministers and priests and all are performing, and I don't see a lot of just real validity to them. Let's talk a little bit, since we've talked about ghosts and we've talked about demons and such, let's talk about something more mainstream, I guess, something that's a little bit less controversial, and that would be aliens. This is something that a lot of people either they believe or they don't. Most people, they fall into one of two camps. They are firmly convinced that we are being visited by extraterrestrial entities, or they're firmly convinced that we are not and it's not possible. And you don't find very many people who are on the fence about it, or who are just open-minded about it. But what I want to say is, you've got a lot of evidence as far as aliens go. You've got a lot of evidence that there are visitations and that there have been visitations going on. Now, I'm not talking about the alien autopsy videos and things like that. Let's not even go there, but let's look at some of these videos that they have of these
unidentified flying objects. We've got the lights over Phoenix, Arizona. We've got these objects moving around over cities in Mexico that are completely and totally unexplained. We have a lot of really, really good instances out there that are still unexplained. I know the government offers official explanations, but if you look at the official explanations that the government offers, a lot of them are a stretch. They're not just a little stretch, they're a miles long stretch to actually to be believed. I mean, they just strain credibility to extreme measures. Now, I'm not going to get into like specifics because there are programs that do that. I just want to talk in theory about it, about how we do have evidence of uh, unidentified flying objects. I'm not sure that we have evidence of extraterrestrials actually doing anything on this planet other than maybe flying their little spacecraft around or whatever. But there is a lot of evidence, and a lot of it is fairly credible, that these things do happen. So there is a reason to believe. But then there's also a lot of explanations for a lot of these instances that are perfectly believable as well. So you're justified, in my opinion, you're justified in believing either way, that we are being visited or that we're not being visited. But I have a hard time believing that out of the entire universe that our planet is the only one with intelligent life. There's nothing about my faith, and I am a Christian, and I'm an unapologetic Christian. There's nothing about my faith that prohibits me from believing that we're not the only intelligent life forms in the universe. So I kind of fall on the side of, yes, we're being visited, but I'm not so firmly entrenched that I couldn't be convinced otherwise. I'm open-minded. I still want to see the evidence on all sides. All right, now about Bigfoot. This is something that I'm undecided on, but you have a lot of people. It's just like with aliens. You've got a lot of people that are firm believers in Bigfoot, and then you've got a lot that are firm believers that it's all hoax, and you don't have anything really in between. Now, I fall in between because I see a lot of really what I consider really good evidence, but then I see a lot of really good arguments for Bigfoot not existing. Okay, so I'm in the middle. I'm in a situation where I still am formulating my opinion and my belief on the subject, and I may never actually have that cemented because I'm gathering information, and I may not have that belief really cemented until I actually see a Bigfoot. Live or dead, I actually see a Bigfoot. I've not seen one to my knowledge, so that may be what it takes to get me to actually believe. Or maybe somebody kills one, and it's not like that hoax back in 2008, and it's a real Bigfoot instead of just a costume with some pig guts inside it. So it's okay to be on the fence. That's where I'm at, and that's where I think most people should be with Bigfoot, because it only makes sense if you weigh the arguments for the existence versus the arguments against the existence. They're pretty even. And until I see something that's more convincing either way, until somebody proves beyond a doubt that Bigfoot is a hoax or proves beyond a doubt that Bigfoot exists, then I'm going to still be on the fence, and I'm still going to be formulating my belief based on the evidence that I can find, whether through media sources such as television or internet research. I'm going to be looking for that evidence and weighing that evidence. So, although it's really fun to think about Bigfoot, and it's really fun to think about aliens and ghosts and all of this kind of stuff. But what I do and what I would like to convince everybody else out there to do is to base your beliefs on evidence. Base whatever you believe in. Okay, I believe in ghosts. This is my evidence. Now, if you bring your evidence to me, I'm going to think that your belief is valid. Even if I don't share that belief, if I see that you base that belief on evidence rather than on just emotion or, just entertainment, all the entertainment shows that you see, then I'm actually going to give your opinion credibility. And that's the same with Bigfoot and with aliens, but they're really fun topics to think about. And I would like to get some people's opinions on whether or not we're being visited by aliens, whether or not Bigfoot exists, and whether or not there are ghosts that haunt people and places here on Earth. So think about that a while. We're going to take another break, and we're going to start this one off with some older Gary Morris, and then we'll be back and we will talk about abortion after the break. So let's listen to Gary. Great song there from Ben Folds 5. It's called Brick, and that's a little older song, but it's a really great song dealing with the subject of abortion. So that's what we're going to talk about now, and that's why I picked the song. Now, this is one area that I absolutely definitely have a concrete belief and opinion, and I do not see any possibility that there could be any argument or evidence come along to change my mind. And that is my belief based on science as well as on my faith, but based primarily on science, that life begins at conception. Period. Life begins at conception. So there's all sorts of information out there, and we're not going to get into specifics on this show and argue when the heartbeat starts and when brain activity starts and things like that, because what that does is that gets into this argument about viability, and this whole concept of viability I think is just absolutely absurd. It's like it's okay to terminate a human life that's not viable. Well, if that's the case, then any human life that's not viable, why don't we just go and freely terminate those lives? In fact, why have nursing homes? Because these people can't get by on their own. They're not viable. So instead of having nursing homes, why don't we just line up all the people that aren't viable anymore and kill them? It should be legal. If it's legal to kill a life before it becomes viable by whoever standards, if it's legal to terminate this life before it's viable, then why can't you terminate a life after it's no longer viable anymore according to these standards? So, see, that's the argument that they're making, is this viability, and I can show you how absurd it is just by being absurd and saying, hey, we should have the right to go kill every old person who can no longer take care of themselves because they're not viable. That is just absolutely anathema to my faith, and I would love to see more respect for human life out there, and less self-centeredness and less selfishness on the part of people who want to advocate for women's quote-unquote reproductive rights. Well, it's quite interesting how these people would they want to be able to terminate these human lives, okay? But say they had a dog or a cat that was pregnant, and you wanted to terminate that early pregnancy life in the dog or the cat, they wouldn't hear of it. That would be violating the animal's rights to be born and to live. Yet they want to be able to terminate the life inside their own body that began at conception. And I'm absolutely not going to change my mind on this. The science shows life begins at conception. Any idiot can see that. And all abortion is murder of a human being that's in the process of becoming. And if it's okay to murder a human being that's in the process of becoming, uh, it's absolutely arbitrary where we set this viability cutoff. Well, you can kill the human up to this point, but not to this point. Well, how about individuals with Down syndrome or other disabilities that are never going to become a fully viable human being? So this, like I said, this viability issue, it just gets really, really, really absurd, and we need to have more respect for human life than to look at it as an issue of viability. We also need to have more responsibility than to look at this as a simple reproductive choice. Okay? Now, I'm going to tell you, I absolutely support a woman's right to choose whether or not she's going to have a baby. I just think she should choose before she gets knocked up and not after. Now I know I'm going to get a lot of flack on that comment, but what I'm saying is I understand there are other instances, but the vast, vast, vast majority of these cases where these women want abortions, it's because they're covering up for their irresponsibility. They had unprotected sex and now they're pregnant and they don't want to be pregnant. Well, they should have thought about that before they had the unprotected sex. That's all there is to it. That's what I'm trying to get across to you. Now, I know there are instances where it is not an issue of irresponsibility. In those cases, I think that we need to consider adoption as a first avenue rather than abortion as a first avenue. Why resort to killing a life form when there are families out there who cannot have children and they would love to have a baby? Okay? Adoption is the way to go. So you're going to be inconvenienced. You're going to have to carry a child for 9 months. There are so many worse inconveniences in this world. Believe me, our soldiers who are overseas fighting for us are much, much more inconvenienced than you would be to carry a child for 9 months. So, what I'm going to say is adoption, adoption, adoption. And even if it's not an issue of responsibility, even if your child is the result of, and we hear this, they're always lumped in together, rape and incest, then you should be able to abort the child. Well, it's a sad situation either way. But I'm going to tell you, on the one hand, as far as rape goes, you could carry this child for 9 months, okay? And you could use this terrible thing that has happened to you, this really terrible wrong, this crime that has happened to you, you could use that as an opportunity to make another family's life better by carrying that child for 9 months and giving it up for adoption. You could do that rather than using it as an excuse to terminate a human life. It's that simple. It's a matter of character. Are you strong enough? Are you caring enough? Do you have the character to carry a child that you do not want rather than to kill it? And that's really what it is. It's an issue of selfishness over respect for human life. So I'm giving some alternatives here, okay? And I want some feedback on this. And we may not get feedback on this particular show. We may be talking about this again in coming shows next week or the week after, and we'll get to your comments. And if there's anything that's worthy of putting on the air, I will. And the reason why I say that is because most of the comments that I get on these arguments like abortion, they're really half-baked. They're intense emotional arguments. I've got the right, and who are you to blah, blah, blah. And that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for logical, well thought out positions that are succinctly stated. And those will get on the air whether I agree with them or not. What doesn't get on the air is blindly towing the party line without any consideration for other arguments. That won't make it on the air. And of course, comments that assault me are obviously not going to make it on the air either. Now, with abortion, like I said, we have this rape and incest kind of lumped together. And, you know, I'm going to tell you something. There's a myth that goes around out there, and this is an academic discussion, so don't make anything else out of it other than an academic discussion. And that is that incest causes birth defects. And I'm going to tell you that almost we have evidence, anthropological evidence, that almost every species out there engages in this kind of activity from time to time, and they don't result in birth defects. Inbreeding is used in horses and in other animals to preserve bloodlines and to preserve characteristics, and it does not result in these birth defects in these other species. And the studies that have been conducted that show this really, they look at the cases that are reported. Well, I'm going to submit to you that 99% of these cases of incest are going to go unreported due to the stigma, due to the shame. Nobody's going to want to report it, so they're going to go unreported. So you don't really have a legitimate sample to study with this. So the issue of birth defects in your child is not a legitimate reason to kill it. It's not a legitimate reason. What you need to do is to give that life that has been created an opportunity to live. And like I said, if it's something that you cannot have in your life after it's born, then have the character and the strength to carry it the 9 months and have the compassion on other families that would love to have that baby, have enough compassion on them, have enough strength and character to carry the child, and then to give it up for adoption so that somebody else could have their life made better through your misfortune. And I don't want to come off as insensitive at all here. I know a lot of people are going to see it that way, but this is not an emotional discussion. This is an effort to get to what the real truth is here. And the real truth is life begins at conception. Even through incest, the chances are not very much at all that it's going to be genetically defective. And even through rape or incest, it's not something that's going to completely ruin your life to carry a child for 9 months and to use that as an opportunity to make somebody else's life better. These are just things that I want you to think about. And I'd like you to be considering how you could be thinking about other people more than thinking about yourself. Abortion is a me, I'm just thinking about myself kind of thing. And adoption is an I'm thinking about other people kind of thing. And it's one of those things where you can demonstrate your character by saying, I am willing to take something horrible that has happened to me and turn it into a positive for not only the life that's inside me, but for another family that would love to have that life as part of their family. Well, we're going to take a break here, and we're going to come back, and I'm going to try to get to a little listener feedback, and if we have anything that we can take to the air, we definitely will. So let's listen to some music from Placebo, Running Up That Hill. All right. Anytime you hear that Dwight Yoakam song, Little Ways, you know it's time for the listener feedback section. Unfortunately tonight, I really don't have anything that I can put out there on the air. or that I'm willing to put out on the air, because so much of it is just mindless, uh, really attacks and things like that. I mean, if they were accompanied by reasonable thoughts, I would gladly put them on the air. I will share all positions, but I'm not going to share comments that just blindly to a party line or attack me uh, personally, not even just attacking my positions, but attack me personally. Uh, that's just, that's absolutely not going to get on the air. It shows a complete lack of character and a complete lack of logic and a complete loss of desire to get to the truth. What it shows me is that what you're doing is you're saying, I don't care what else is out there. I'm going to believe what I want to believe, regardless of what else is out there, and I'm going to shove it down your throat. I'm going to beat you over the head with it. And there's a difference between somebody who seeks knowledge and seeks truth and somebody who just seeks comfort in their beliefs. And when you're somebody who seeks comfort in your beliefs, you shut out everything else by turning every other argument into something bad, something evil, something negative. And that's something that is definitely not going to make it on the air on the Unvarnished Truth. Now, if you'd like to comment, feel free to comment. You can go to facebook.com/David Paul Brennan, and you can make a comment there. There's a link on that page to the Facebook page for the Unvarnished Truth. You can also make a comment there. Or if you would like to not make a comment that's going to be public on Facebook, then send me a private message on Facebook or email me at let's see, it's David Paul Brennan at Facebook.com. And any of those ways, or you can you can send me a tweet on Twitter. It's at codename SwanDog on Twitter, and please just show that you have a brain and that you can think things through and that you can carry on an intelligent conversation rather than just becoming an attack dog. So, I would just love it if you could keep your comments civil at least. I do have one comment that came in that I'm going to share on the abortion. Yes, looks like Allison Grambling here. Now these kind of comments I love. Allison says, "You have a very sexy voice, and I would have your baby." So all such comments are very welcome here on the Unvarnished Truth. So we're running out of time, and we will be back on Friday. But as it is, it's time for me to leave you. And any way I've looked, I've only seen that I can't leave you with a bad goodbye.